As of recording this, there are three main controversies going on in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet speedrunning, and today I'm going to try my best to explain the arguments for every issue. So the three major debates going on right now in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet speedrunning are start times, loading times, and breaks during runs. First of all, if you don't know, when a new game comes out, you don't just automatically start uploading runs to speedrun.com. There's usually a waiting period in the first couple weeks so that speedrunners have time to come up with strategies, learn mechanics, and plan out their routes. And during this waiting period, the community will decide what the rules of the speedrun are.
And from what I've seen over the years, the votes are more in favor of like the people that have already done a run of the game, and then you have like the votes of people that like haven't done the run, and it's like in a weighted system. So like the least voted option will be like cut.
Seeing as Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are pretty different from past Pokemon games, it's created some issues for coming up with rule sets. And one of the biggest issues currently being debated is where to start the runtime. So the three main proposals are as soon as the game starts, before you pick a starter, and so you might be wondering, why not just start the timer as soon as the game starts? The biggest issue is that the tutorial is about an hour long. And if you have to slog through an hour-long tutorial just to get to the fun part of a game, it's less enticing for new players to want to start.
Like, I think a big thing that a lot of people miss, you have to really think of like the longevity of the speedrun. And if we're sitting here for like 50 plus minutes trying to get through the intro, there's not going to be a lot of people wanting to commit to that.
One idea runners had was that everyone should create a new Switch profile, start a new save, get that save to right after the school tutorial where you get a mount Pokemon, save your game, turn off autosave, and now anytime you want to speedrun, you can load up that profile. The problem with that is if you crash mid-run, your run is over, and that could be ultra rage-inducing. And I'm pretty sure there's already examples of speedrunners losing their runs to random game crashes.
I can't move. I literally can't fucking move. No, it's not my controller. I can't fucking move. I just disconnected it, reconnected it. I can't move.
Speaking of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's poor performance, the second issue currently being debated by speedrunners for this game is loading times. We've all encountered performance issues to some extent with Scarlet and Violet.
This is not nearly as laggy as usual. Oh my god.
These frame rate drops and lags are actually causing a huge headache for speedrunners in deciding whether or not to include loading screens in your total end time, since they're random and not completely within your control. There's been a proposal that loading and transition times get cut out of the total runtime at the end. This is pretty significant because loading times in some instances can last up to 25 seconds long. So the issue here is that it would obviously take a really long time for leaderboard moderators to go back through every run and accurately retime to not include loading screens. One potential fix is to create a program that automatically turns off your run timer whenever it sees that you're on a loading screen. The big issue here is accessibility. The philosophy is that speedrunners should want their games to be as welcoming to newcomers as possible because it helps keep the scene alive and keeps runs competitive. But if you have to download an extra program on top of your speedrun timers just to speedrun the game, less people will ultimately want to run it. And the last debate, probably the least controversial one, but it's whether or not to have breaks during runs. So a couple things here. My understanding is that speedrun rules say if a run is longer than 8 hours, you have to allow for a break at some point in between. Breaks for games that are shorter than 8 hours are up to the community and how they want to implement this per game. The only other Pokemon game with a run shorter than 8 hours that allows for breaks is Pokemon Colosseum, actually. So you can see here why breaks were implemented into Colosseum runs in the first place, is that at the fastest run is like 3.5 hours. And just for reference, the current world record for Scarlet and Violet is like around 5 hours and 40 minutes. But definitely some kind of break would be nice, even if it's just like a short bathroom break or just short food break. So the current proposal is to allow 2 breaks adding up to 1 hour. So like 2 30-minute breaks, 1 15, 1 45. And yeah, this is pretty largely uncontroversial. And again, the reason is because if it makes the speedrunning easier on the players, then more people will want to do it. So those are the three major controversies going on. But as I'm recording, I am just seeing there's been kind of a huge breakthrough in Scarlet and Violet speedrunning. There's been a new strategy that's been developed. So until about a week ago, the main strategy was to pick a starter Pokemon and then replace it pretty early on with either Lucario or Hawlucha. But just today, as of recording, it looks like the new main might be Flamigo. It's looking like the best Pokemon for speedrunning Charlotte, and Violet. And the general idea of that strat is to get Flamigo early game right before Cloth, beat Cloth with Flamigo, and use the speed boost you get after beating Cloth to get just a shit ton of experience in rare candies. The idea is that you level up Flamigo to level 70 and run through everything afterwards very quickly. The last little update that I thought was interesting I wanted to share is that Pokemon Scarlet might be better to speedrun than Pokemon Violet. There's a couple reasons for this, but the main reason is the Paradox Pokemon. So spoiler warning if you haven't beaten the game yet, but if you play Violet, Professor Churro leads with Iron Moth. Iron Moth is just a really good Pokemon. It's really fast and it's hard and or risky to set up on. The second reason, kind of along the same vein, is Iron Hands, which is the Hariyama Paradox Pokemon, I believe. And the reason behind that is because it always goes for Fake Out, which makes you lose a turn, in addition to just being really bulky. According to PulseFX, who you should subscribe to because he helped digest a lot of this information, the best Pokemon to run might come down to move animation times, because in this game you can't turn off move animations.
Right now, I think what it's going to come down to is who has the fastest move animations and least amount of moves you need to teach, least amount of distance you have to like cover as well to teach those moves.
Speedrunners have kind of figured out where all the rare candies and experience candies are on the Paldea map. So the strat is going to be pretty similar no matter which Pokemon you decide to main. Just get all the rare candies, get all the experience candies, level your Pokemon up to be super broken, and then sweep everything really quickly. Speaking of all of the speedrunning stuff, I'm going to be attempting to speedrun different categories of this game over the next couple weeks, live here on YouTube. But that's a topic best saved for another day.